I was speaking to an ICU nurse, and she was telling me of the layoffs that she's experiencing in her hospital and, of course, around in her area in the medical profession. And that was one area in which I didn't think would be affected with so many job losses because of the baby boomers. But she says because of all the uninsured people, and so many of these, they're not accepting Medicare and Medicaid anymore, and the billing has been changing, and doctors are not billing anybody's insurances because of the cost of doing so. And but she says many people, many nurses are being laid off. Many hospitals are being closed along with clinics. So I just thought that was very interesting. And as we move towards our socialized medicine.
Dreadful.
It is.
But the main cause of that is not only the underlying uninsured, and it's going to get greater because of the layoffs, but the real problem there is the illegal aliens, because none of them have insurance, and they're not really in the system where they pay for Medicare or Social Security or taxation. Most of them have private businesses, and they work in a black economy, if you may, and then when they get ill, they go down to the emergency room, and it's killing us. You know, I'm not for letting people die in the street, but it's got to stop. I don't know how, but it's got to stop, or the average person is not going to be able to get served in a hospital when they're ill.
Well, let's go on to this next question. If the banks have been selling all their subprime mortgages as CDOs through Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, why have they lost so much money on them? Did they end up keeping billions of dollars of them as good investments?
They kept billions of dollars worth because they get stuck with them. And the reason they get stuck was because Meredith Whitney blew the whistle on it. Now, when she's a young lady, probably the top research analyst at Oppenheimer, particularly on banks. And she came out, it would be 2 years ago this coming June, and she said that, you know, CitiCorp really shouldn't be selling at $32 a share. It should be $23 or something like that. And we had shorted Citigroup at around 40. And that's what got the thing off the ground. And once that started, they get stuck. They get trapped. And so, yes, the U.S. government, in behalf of the American taxpayer, is paying for all of these mistakes these banks made. And those pieces, bonds, which are called toxic waste or toxic garbage, are sitting either with the Federal Reserve or the U.S. government, and they're worth 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 cents on the dollar. The average is around 30. And these banks still have lots of those bonds, which they're shoveling off into other corporations to get them off their balance sheet, which is totally illegal. But that's what's going on now. Again, all the major banks and brokerage houses are bankrupt. It's as simple as that. And it's starting to show up in the stock market, 82, 81 today on the close for the Dow. We're headed to 6,000 this year, if we're lucky. It could be 4,500 to 5,000. And goodness knows what's going to happen after that.
All right. Let's see.
The XAU is up 5.07. Go ahead.
When do you see the price of oil turning up?
Well, I would imagine that it should have already done so. And very briefly, I think the deal is this. I think the Chinese were howling. They lost 70% of their money from the sovereign fund that they invested in the United States in these different banks and brokerage houses and so on. And on top of that, they see the dollar going down. So I think the deal that was cut between the U.S. Treasury and the Chinese is this. We're going to keep the dollar strong, no matter what, for as long as we can. But what we're going to do is we're going to suppress the price of commodities which you need for manufacturing so you can buy them cheap. And they drove the commodities right into the cellar. And that's why Chinese purchases of oil went up 157% in December. And they're just loading up on oil. They're putting it in reserve. They're also loading up on copper, lead, zinc, and all the base metals. So I think that's what's going on. And I think that they're in there buying, and I think the prices will slowly move back up again. They're certainly not going to go where they were before, but I think oil could go to $80. But it all depends on what goes on. I mean, if this war in the Middle East gets worse, oil could go up rather quickly. And so, these markets are so hard to call. That's why I encourage you not to trade. You go long and stay long. Go ahead, Melanie.
China has now, passed Japan in buying our dollars. Do you think there was an agreement made, hey, we'll hit commodities? Because they know, China needs commodities desperately.
Well, that's exactly what's going on, I think.
Yeah, you guys keep, we'll hit the commodities, and you guys keep buying the dollars.
Well, I've got it in tomorrow's issue. It was a realization that I had this week, and I think it's right.
Yeah. Here's an interesting, Bob, do you follow horse racing, and particularly the Kentucky Derby?
Well, first of all, no, because it's hard for me because I live in another country. But I started handicapping when I was 12 years old. I've always loved horses. And, that kind of research has always really appealed to me. I found it very exciting. So I still play the horses, but I haven't seen who's running in the Kentucky Derby.
Well, the reason he raises the subject of horse racing is due to the Illuminati and a close relationship for horse racing, such as the Rothschild family, Queen of England, and their ownership of racehorses, and the attendance at the most prestigious racing events. Furthermore, if you look over past winners of the Kentucky Derby, you will find how the Illuminati planned the winner for that particular time frame or year to fit in with their current and or future agenda. And he's given such examples as in 2002, war emblem, and that was prior to the Iraq War. In 1991, strike the gold, and that was Kuwait Gold Bullion Gulf War. 1937, war admiral, that was prior to World War II. 1933, broker's tip, that was the Depression. And 1926, bubbling over, the Roaring '20s. And he says keep a close eye on the future Kentucky Derby winners.
Well, that's an interesting perspective. I've never thought of that before. And I used to get the magazine every week called Bloodstock, and it was probably a half an inch thick every week, or maybe it was every 2 weeks. I had to give it up, but I get pretty familiar with the Bloodstock line, so I can often go and pick a horse just based on their lineage. But anyway, it's a good commentary.
What is the most significant Achilles heel of Obama that we could use to wake people up that he is just more of the same or worse?
Geez, I hadn't thought about that. Gosh, I'm going to have to... Well, you got to wait for him to act first. Then he can start drilling him. And the way you do it is connect him with the Illuminists. And every time, something is done, you put after their name CFR, Trilad, Bilderberger, and then maybe the people in the audience out there, the public, will start to realize that there's significance to this. One of the interesting things, very quickly, is on February the 3rd, I'm going to be on a program which stunned me when they asked me to go on. And the program is with Reuben Torres in New York. And some of the guests that they've had are Bloomberg and Steve Forbes and pastor who's one of the creators of the North American Union, etc. And they know the content of what I write. So I was just surprised I was going to go on there. And so I said, sure, I'll go on. And it's a call-in program as well. And it's on about 45 minutes. We'll be on at 9:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I don't know what the coordinates are. I'll have to get them. But anyway, I'll give them a piece of my mind.